Call the Air Mobility and Aviation Economic Development Task Force to order. Today is Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. If you could, please call the roll.
Senator Elkins. Present. Senator Meredith. Senator Nunn. Here. Representative Hodgson. Representative Meredith. Representative Rourks. Representative Thompson. Here. Co-Chair Dietz. Here. Chairman Storm.
Here. We have a quorum. We'll do the constituted new business. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes that are in your packets.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. We have a second. We have a second. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? No one's opposed. Those are approved. At this time, we would invite our guests from Amazon to come up. And if you could, just make sure the green microphone light is on. Introduce yourself for the record, and you have the floor. Make sure your green light is lit up.
On, let me turn it up.
There we go.
All right.
Good.
No, I think it's off now. Hit it one more time. Is the green light on?
Okay.
Yep.
Yes? All right. Thank you. So thanks for the opportunity to address the task force and share more information about Amazon and our aviation business, Amazon Air in Kentucky. I'll introduce myself. My name is Allie Faddis. I have been in aviation for, hold on, let me pick that. There we go. I've been in aviation now for almost 30 years. I started professionally as an airline pilot for Horizon Air, which is the regional arm of Alaska Air Group, which serves Kentucky. And I worked there for almost 20 years. I went in as a full-time pilot. After about 5 years, I realized that the leadership bone in my body was as strong as the aviation bone in my body. And I moved into leadership roles and held the chief pilot title at one time for that airline, as well as the director of operations title. I moved from there after 19 and a half years to a Boeing subsidiary called In Situ, which is a part of Boeing Defense, and they are in the uncrewed aviation business for defense. And from there, I came to Amazon in 2022, so almost 4 years, or 4 peaks, as we like to say at Amazon. And at Amazon, I oversee global aviation operations. So if you think of Amazon Air, anything that has a skill set that's pretty specific to aviation, I oversee our network control center, which is our version of our airline dispatch center in northern Kentucky at the airport, as well as aviation experts that are at our sites across the United States. And we also manage procedures for aviation, all our policies and procedures, standard operating procedures globally, including EU, Canada, and India. And that is my team. So I'm going to start this slide deck talking about Amazon in Kentucky, which we're really proud to be able to do here today. So I'll start a little bit with investment profiles across the Commonwealth. Amazon has a deep history with the state of Kentucky, where we first set roots in 1999 with the launch of our first fulfillment center in Campbellsville. And they just celebrated their 25th anniversary. Campbellsville is one of the longest operating sites in the national Amazon network and is the first of its kind east of the Mississippi. In addition to our Campbellsville site, we've got 11 additional fulfillment and sortation centers, 7 delivery stations, and our air hub in Boone County. Our operations are statewide, from rural hubs like Paducah and London to urban areas around Louisville, Lexington, and especially northern Kentucky. Amazon's invested more than $60 billion in Kentucky since 2010, including infrastructure and compensation to employees. Thanks to our investments, $50 billion has been added into Kentucky's GOP. We're committed to unlocking opportunity for all, and we're proud to create jobs across the country for people of all skills and experience levels. 46% of people working across our fulfillment center network and operations network were previously unemployed, creating opportunities for people at every stage of their career growth. Additionally, 2 out of every 5 U.S. jobs Amazon creates are in small town America. Economists found that more than 40% of all jobs Amazon created in the last 5 years were created in small towns. Whether it's at a fulfillment center, delivery station, air hub, or retail store, every job we create is an example of Amazon's economic engine at work. Amazon's created 20,000 full and part-time jobs in Kentucky, including 8,000 across northern Kentucky, Boone, Kenton, and Campbell counties. We're especially proud to support relief efforts following the tornado and flooding earlier this year around London, the severe floods in eastern Kentucky in 2022, and the December 2021 tornadoes in western Kentucky. Toy drives, supplying relief items, and sending water and food to the Red Cross. We're also proud of our partnerships with the Life Learning Center in Covington that provides career upskilling, gainful employment, and support services for at-risk citizens. Craft Academy at Morehead State University, where Kentucky top high school seniors receive college-level STEM X opportunities, and other nonprofits statewide. In addition to investing in communities in which we operate, supporting small business is fundamental to our work. And the numbers tell a remarkable story. In Kentucky, independent sellers sold more than 20 million items and averaged more than 180,000 in annual sales in 2024. Let's take the example of Heirloom Traditions Paint, based in Taylorsville, Kentucky. Paula Blankenship started the business in her kitchen about 12 years ago, but struggled to reach new customers from her small town. In 2016, she launched her coveted line of paints in Amazon's store and quickly became a nationwide success with Fulfillment by Amazon, or FBA in short. FBA handled the challenges of storing, picking, packing, and shipping liquid products. All that Paula needed to do was to get her product into the Amazon network, and Fulfillment by Amazon did the rest. The impact was immediate and substantial. As sales grew, Heirloom Traditions hired more workers and expanded their product line. And today the company generates $30 million in annual revenue and has become one of the largest privately held employers in Spencer County. Their success has also enabled a $7 million investment in new manufacturing facilities and a 30,000 square foot warehouse with an attached retail space in Taylorsville. We're committed to the success of our selling partners and excited to continue innovating to help even more small businesses grow and to thriving success stories. So what is Air? Amazon Air, our cargo air network, is designed to serve Amazon sellers like Heirloom Traditions and customers by enabling faster delivery and a wider variety of inventory. Before 2015, Amazon partnered with FedEx, UPS, DHL, and USPS for delivery by air and did not have an internal air delivery capacity. As customer demand continued to increase, we realized we needed to add and build capacity to serve our customers and began to pilot and build an air delivery component to our broader transportation network. And after a test in 2015, Amazon Air was launched in 2016 with a small U.S. domestic network operated by third-party carriers. Today, Air continues to rely on third-party air carriers and is not a certificated carrier itself. Our fleet is operated by our air carrier partners, Air Transport International, ABX Air, Sun Country, Hawaiian Airlines, now Alaska Airlines, and 21 Air. The air network comprises 2 central air hubs, 5 regional air hubs, and more than 35 gateway locations, and a fleet of over 100 aircraft, including 737s, 767s, and A330s. Amazon's prioritizes filling customer orders at the local and regional level through our network of national fulfillment centers. We sit within the middle mile portion of the network. So if you look at the graphic there, it's our job to make sure the package delivery is seamless to the customer from the first mile through the last mile. So we're part of that middle mile. When you click, you likely don't know what fulfillment center your item is coming from, or whether it flew on one of our branded aircraft. Air transportation, though, is needed for lower volume products, items in short supply, and those that otherwise need fast delivery options. This often includes items sold by third-party sellers, often like the small business I mentioned earlier. So the power of the air network is what you see right here. You can see on the left-hand side is what we call first mile, middle mile in the center, and then the deliveries on the end, which is we call final mile or last mile. Over the last 2 decades, Amazon has invested significantly in transportation capacity, allowing us to offer high quality, low cost, speed, and reliable customer experience. We leverage virtually every mode of transportation: trucks, airplanes, ships, bikes, and drones to deliver for our customers. Our air logistics network includes over 100 aircraft, over 65,000 branded trailers to haul freight through third-party carriers, as well as over 4,000 branded cab tractors, more than 21,000 intermodal containers, and we have ordered 100,000 electric delivery vans from Rivian, with over 20,000 on the road today. Earlier this year in 2025, we announced that Amazon hit its fastest prime delivery speeds ever in the US and around the globe, with more than 9 billion items arriving the same day or next day globally. For our air network, we use a hybrid point-to-point and hub-to-spoke model, which is what you can see here. Flight schedules are typically the same every day and change about 3 times a year. We leverage technology and algorithms that determine the most cost and resource-efficient paths to deliver customer needs. So the packages will arrive at our air sites via line haul or on other aircraft, and then they're often sorted and then packed into our branded aircraft where they're bound for the next destination. Customer packages can also be transported via line haul truck to a nearby delivery station in the area. Even with air and other expansions to our delivery network, we'll also rely on our friends at FedEx, UPS, DHL, and USPS to reach our customers. They're valuable partners, industry allies, and we're proud to remain in business with each of them. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about KCVG, our Amazon hub. This is our most exciting thing to talk about, is our big hub in CVG, at KCVG. After more than 4 years of planning, constructing, and investing more than $1.5 billion, this site launched in August of 2021. This facility is Amazon's largest field operation anywhere in the world and serves as the central hub for Amazon Air's U.S. air cargo network, providing faster delivery for our customers across the country. The campus is over 600 acres. It features 7 buildings, including an 800,000 square foot sortation building containing the world's largest Amazon Robotics or AR sortation floor and a ramp with more than 20 aircraft parking spots. The sortation facility is equipped with the innovative use of robotics technology that helps move and sort packages, including arms and mobile drive units that transport packages throughout the building. The facility features ergonomic workstations supporting comfortable work environment for employees, and the building also features a solar rooftop panel, the only installation in our network that feeds all electricity it generates into the local power grid to help power nearby homes and businesses. We've built infrastructure to support a fleet of electric GSE and ground service equipment, which is the equipment required to service an aircraft and manage movement of packages across our ramp operations. In addition to reducing emissions, the electric GSE has the added benefit of cutting down on noise at the site. CVG is also home to the Amazon Network Control Center, where more than 100 aviation professionals manage our global flight operations. The NCC team continuously monitors variables impacting the network, including weather conditions, out-of-service aircraft, gateway operational conditions, line haul, and crew positioning to ensure all flight operations are conducted in a safe, compliant, and customer-focused manner. All these efforts enable us to process millions of Amazon packages per week across more than 30 flights per day from KCVG and dozens more worldwide. And of course, none of this would be possible without the more than 2,000 Amazon associates who are at the core of our operations, and they start earning $23 an hour. We chose to establish our central hub at CVG for several strategic reasons. Its prime geographic location, ample available land, runways capable of supporting large-scale cargo operations, access to a skilled workforce, and strong local partners like you who are committed to Kentucky. We're also committed to Kentucky, to KCVG, and to our aviation passengers' presence in that region. And remember, KCVG is designed to expand. As important as it already is to our network, we're just getting started. In addition to running a safe and reliable operation, sustainability is top of mind for Amazon. The aviation sector is widely regarded as one of the most difficult to decarbonize, but the industry is investing in near-term solutions like alternate aviation fuel. We want to partner with stakeholders to help fuel our operations and identify opportunities to grow and scale the production of AAF everywhere, and especially in Kentucky, given the major air cargo presence here. Since 2020, Amazon secured over 30 million gallons of blended AAF, and we partner with our air carrier suppliers and producers to bring it into our air operations. We appreciate the legislature's work over the past 2 years to create an agriculture economic development fund that can be used for AAF purposes and a statewide AAF feasibility study, and we hope we can build on those efforts. Amazon's a founding member of the Kentucky AAF Coalition, and we want to continue working with the legislator to support infrastructure and policies to scale the production and supply of AAF in the Commonwealth. I'd also like to introduce you to Amazon's Career Choice Program. As I mentioned earlier, our associates are at the core of what we do, and they enable our operations to continue serving our customers across the country. We also recognize that we want to ensure the success of our employees here at Amazon or whatever their career journey is. In 2012, we launched Career Choice, a program where we will prepay education and skills training for associates. We offer a range of options, including fully funded college tuition, foundational skills, courses to improve English language proficiency, high school completion, and career certificates to meet learners where they are on their career path. All U.S. hourly employees, full and part-time, are eligible to participate in Career Choice just 90 days after they start at Amazon. Career Choice now works with hundreds of education providers across the U.S., and employees can take classes online or in person at a local campus. Through Career Choice, over 6,000 Amazon employees in Kentucky have participated already in upskilling programs. Across the Commonwealth, we have 11 partnerships with educational institutions where associates can further their skills and education. In Northern Kentucky, near our air hub, we have partnerships with Gateway Community and Technical College, Northern Kentucky University, and Thomas More University. Earlier this year, we celebrated nearly 100 associates at our first ever Career Choice graduation ceremony at KCVG. 33 earned bachelor's degrees in fields ranging from business administration to computer science, 27 completed associate's degrees, 23 obtained commercial driver's license CDL certifications, and 14 enhanced their English language proficiency through intensive language programs. We've also partnered with Cincinnati State Community College to launch an aviation maintenance technician program. AMTs are responsible for inspecting, maintaining, repairing, and overhauling aircraft to ensure they're safe and airworthy. They can serve in a variety of roles across the transportation and aviation sectors, including commercial, military, and general aviation. Right now, we have 2 AMTs preparing to graduate through that program and another 16 in the pipeline. We're proud to support these associates who invested in their own future and created new opportunities for themselves while maintaining their professional programs. Programs like these support and strengthen the growth of aviation and aerospace workforce across the region. We appreciate this task force's deliberations on how to create more programs like it here in Kentucky and look forward to partnering with you in that effort. We know more growth in our aviation logistics sector will continue to pay dividends for the Commonwealth. Thank you for the opportunity to present today and your support of aviation logistics. I'm happy to take any questions.
We have any questions from members? I want to thank you for the $60 billion of investment that you've poured into Kentucky, number one, and the 20,000 jobs. I do have a question regarding if you know what the most in-demand workforce need is for Amazon, nationwide, is the first question. Then secondly, what it would be specifically for Kentucky and your operations at CVG.
That's a great question. I don't actually have the answer to right now. My partners are here today, so we'll be able to follow up with you on that.
And then, do you have any idea what the challenges that you all may foresee in the next 5 to 7 years for your company?
Yeah, I think I'll say that, as always, we are looking to strengthen our culture. At Amazon, we put the customer first, and customer needs are continually changing. So we always have to be innovative in order to respond to customer needs, whether that is in technology or how we build culture. With organizational changes, we'll always put the customer first, and that'll drive the change.
And then this other question is specific to CVG. You may or may not know the answer. I'm curious, do you all utilize any autonomous vehicles there for Amazon specifically?
So on the ramp, do you mean on the ramp?
Yes.
We do have several in test. There are not any that are part of our regular operation at KCVG, but we do have them in test.
Thank you. Anyone else have any follow-ups or any questions? Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll call our next presenters up, Secretary Knoll and Mr. Wingate, I believe, regarding Aviation Economic Development Plan. Secretary, it's good seeing you again. Last time I saw you, I think it was at CVG during a meeting, and good to have you before the task force. If you could just introduce yourself and your guest, and then you all have the floor.
I'm going to do that simultaneously, trying to figure out technology. But my name is Jeff Knoll, and I am the Secretary for the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development. As it relates to aviation, in my previous life, I actually had a small airport that I was very involved with, including a strategic plan, including extending the runway. And then in my most previous life at Whirlpool Corporation at that same airport, all the corporate aircraft reported to me, and all the work that we did to extend the runway with the community, and including the way we found to fund that airport to make sure that it had the kind of safety and things that were needed both for the community and for the company. But despite my fact that all the aircraft reported to me, my boss never let me in the cockpit, so I am not an expert in terms of flying those aircraft. So it's a real pleasure to be here today, and obviously Matt Wingate can introduce himself.
I'm Matt Wingate. I'm the General Counsel and currently technologically in advance on how to start a slideshow. So we'll get you.
Can I just do it this way?
Yeah, sure. Have at it.
No?
We have an expert technician that's
There we
approaching
go.
the.
Where's the present? Oh, it's not in the presentation view. There it is. Right there. Click right there. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes several villages to work with the Cabinet for Economic Development Secretary.
Members have the slide presentation, I think, in their packets.
Who wants to come do this for us here?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move on because you have a full agenda, and there are several members of the military who I just want to thank for their service and for their participation in here today. If you just go to the first slide, and I can roll that back. I'm not going to spend any other time than you all know. My real big belief is purpose, and that's what we do at the Cabinet. But this is our one-pager that embodies our blueprint, which is a very lengthy strategic document that we worked with McKinsey and worked with numerous folks around the state to put together, and to make sure that you understand our role and at least our understanding of aviation, aerospace, and how it fits. If you look at the strategic imperatives of our Cabinet, there are two areas in which I think have an impact here. First is logistics. Obviously, we're very fortunate to have the kinds of operations like Amazon. We greatly appreciate them. A lot of their jobs, a lot of our activities would show up in logistics within our strategic imperative. Then in the far right, invest in high potential areas like aerospace. It's our number one export, and it's one that we take very seriously. And while there are others in the state that have primary responsibilities in the aviation world, we think there is a direct link and a direct role to economic development, and I'll talk about that just a little bit today in terms of how we address those things. I'm not going to go through the outcomes because I do think they are important to always share with this body, but for sake of time, I'm going to go right into why we believe in our cabinet aviation not only has been, but will continue to be a major driver of economic growth in our state. When we look at just the manufacturing elements of aerospace, there are over 20,000 people working in that particular industry. When you look at DHL, Amazon, UPS, a lot of those jobs would show up in the logistics side of the business operation, even though there's the clear interdependence in terms of the aircraft operations of a company like Amazon with their logistics business. And that's why we come at it from an economic development perspective, and that is you can never, ever underestimate the interdependence between business, industry, and the world of aerospace and aviation. So that's the things that we try to look at. It's one of the areas that we want to try to find more ways of growing, and candidly, I think Kentucky is already well known, but will continue to be known for manufacturing, refurbishing, fabrication, and the things that need to be done to maintain aircraft. And it goes back to, quite candidly, what the good Lord has provided to our state. We are centrally located with great facilities and great operations, and we just believe that aviation is an important part of everything we do, including slide presentations. And I really do apologize for my ineptness. Won't go through all the numbers, but clearly they speak for themselves. We are the #1 state in terms of air cargo shipments. We want to maintain that. That's one of the reasons why whenever I hear synthetic aviation fuel or alternative aviation fuel, my ears perk up, because I believe that is actually an imperative. I really truly believe that if we've got carriers and businesses that have made commitments to reduce their carbon footprint and move into an aviation fuel where they're looking at synthetic fuels, we need to make sure they have that access right here in Kentucky, because we have too many jobs and too much industry that depends upon it. And I do turn around. They already left, but I was going to turn around and look at my colleagues from Amazon. We're active members of that the Alternative Aviation Committee, and we spend a lot of time working with all of those major carriers. And this year alone, we have worked on, and we continue to work on, 3 different companies that are trying to figure out the economics of a synthetic aviation fuel investment in our state. Lots of other companies, BAE Systems, Raytheon, you name it. We have the marquee names in the aviation space right here in Kentucky, and it generates almost $20 billion of products that are sold around the world. The economic impact goes beyond, though, our general aviation airports. I really think that making sure we capitalize on our commercial facilities around the state, but also how do we find ways of helping the general aviation, or what I call fixed-based operations, grow and become more a part of their community. We think that's also an important element of what we do within our cabinet. And this slide gives you a general understanding that if you look at diversity across our state, we have lots of airports in a good geographic mix across our state, which is an asset. One of the things we've begun working on is reaching out to these local facilities, trying to understand if they have additional land adjacent to the airports that could be developed. We think that over time, there may be more and more of maintenance, aviation type work, mechanic work that can take place on some of these airports, and as has been done with Amazon and DHL, some what we call support operations that take place in these smaller communities that rely upon an airport. And further, and this is really where I believe for rural Kentucky and eastern Kentucky, we have put together programs that are trying to attract more of the small to medium-sized manufacturers. Many of those might be family-owned. And if those family-owned businesses have 4 or 5 locations across the country, you can bet they are very likely to have a private aircraft that they rely upon in order to service those facilities. So when we talk to those kinds of companies, we always want to make sure they understand what I call the wealth of local airports that we have across the state, in addition to those great commercial airports that we have. Not going to go through this, but it is, to me, always nice to use numbers to validate we're #1. And I think there's just something about a spirit of winning with integrity that it's okay to publicize. We're beating states like California, Arkansas, Tennessee, and among others in terms of that air cargo freight. It's a good number to have, and it's not a bad thing to congratulate all of you, because it's your policies that have really helped make those types of operations successful. You know, I know that this legislative body has provided funding support to many of our airports. From time to time, you have those funds flow through our cabinet. We're very pleased to do that, and in the last budgetary session, there were several projects in which funding for airports came through our cabinet. Matt took the lead in making sure those funds were distributed in a very expedited manner and basically in a way in which we could get the funds working to help these airports progress and move forward. I mentioned a few moments ago that we have reached out to the local fixed-based operators or general aviation airports. I think that's an ongoing effort, especially to encourage more leadership. I would like to see almost like a KPDI program where we might be able to work with all of our general aviation facilities and work on a consultancy plan to make sure that every community that has asphalt that's laid flat, that an aircraft can land on it, what's their vision for utilizing that piece of property? What are the opportunities we might have in adjacent development opportunities, as an example? I think there are more that we can do. We will do more, but it's those kinds of things that we believe our cabinet has already begun looking at and has already been communicating, and I'll get to a situation in a moment where we've also tried to communicate to all the smaller airports, go after grant funding, because thanks to the legislature, we have a program that can provide that local match in terms of going after those types of federal funds. I might share with you that we've seen a little over $38 million of federal grants being applied for, in which 3 airports, Henderson, Hazard, and Louisville, have come to the grant program as a result of our outreach, and we've approved a little over $3 million to leverage that $38 million of private investment that, if all fully funded, will help enhance assets into those airports. And again, we will continue to promote the use of the grant program to those facilities across the state. We also believe every time we have an opportunity, we promote the educational opportunities we have in Kentucky, including the program at East Kentucky University, at Madisonville Community College, that I have visited both. And I can tell you that they are great assets and are also, I think, good tools to try and attract more aviation-related manufacturers and businesses in those kinds of locations. And I'm moving quickly because I know you have a full agenda. And then, Senator, as we talked about in terms of marketing when we met in CVG, we don't have the funding to go and have a booth and have a place at the Paris Air Show, but our European office physically attended, coordinated with companies like Safran and making introductions with other companies. And we also have in our blueprint for next year going to the MRO America show, and that's really where the aircraft maintenance takes place. Again, we think it is important to do outreach to try to talk to some of the companies that can help either put us in touch with other companies, or they themselves may want to further their investment like Safran has done right here in Kentucky. And as a good senator knows, we've also committed to the CVG airport that we will participate if they buy a booth for their marketing going on into the next year, and we will definitely commit ourselves to doing that. Again, I wanted to move quickly, but I'll just summarize, it is part of our strategy. We know how important this aviation industry is to our state, and I go back to what I said earlier. You never know about the interdependencies. I mean, we've worked with companies that have wet labs that are moving into the pharmaceutical industries that rely very heavily on the air cargo infrastructure that we have in this state. And I go back to some of those medium to other size companies that have probably ownership that own aircraft. In my own experience working for a large corporation that had those aircraft in a small community, you usually don't get a chance to pitch a new greenfield opportunity for a large company if you're not located very close to an airport, unless you have access to an FBO in which the corporate entities can come in and fly in. It is truly an interdependent situation, which is why we have been active in, we have been planning around, and we have been marketing the opportunities in the aviation industry. Even though it's not a direct element of our cabinet, we think it's an important part of the foundation of the economic activity that goes across Kentucky, and we're very active in those spaces. But like everything in economic development, we've learned that we partner. We take the lead from the commercial airports. They got great staff, really smart people. We listen, we learn, and we try to support them. And then where possible, we provide as much support to the FBOs and what I call general aviation airports across the state. And we hope they will take advantage more of the grant program, because there again, that's a great way for them to access funding. And there are funds out there that could be done for planning, hangars, and other things that we know every airport would like to have. Summation. Went way too fast, I apologize, but hopefully you got the sense of the breadth and depth of what we're doing around general aviation.
Co-Chair Dietz has a question.
First, thank you so much for that presentation. I represent a part of Northern Kentucky and took a tour of the Amazon facility, very familiar with CVG. I guess I have a couple questions. One, how do you all work with the Department of Transportation? I mean, are you all hand in hand in this vision that you all have?
I believe we're hand in hand. Now, do we have a process where we go out and we meet with them and we actively review each other's strategic plans? We don't, and we probably should, and that's on me, not on the Department of Transportation. So I'll take that on to say we should do more. We have meetings with their officials. We talk with them. We've been engaged in some risk share agreements in which they were involved with, but I think we can certainly do more in that space.
And that was leading to my next question, because we just met last Tuesday, and there was someone here from their department, and we had heard from representatives, I think, from 2 different states, and they talked about how important it was to have a strategic plan or a vision. You used both of those words when you were presenting today. They don't have a strategic plan. So that's why I was curious how you all work together, because if we're hearing from them that there's not a strategic plan and maybe it's not necessary, you know, what can we do? That's the purpose of the task force. Is maybe it was great to hear that you have that, but how do we bring the transportation department into that?
Again, I'm going to put the responsibility on myself. I think I should be the one that makes sure we're working even more closely with them, and I will commit to getting that done. And also, in some cases, it may well be that there is a strategy. Maybe they just don't have the plan, but they have the strategy, and I'll make sure that we are coordinating with them. A lot of our interaction with them has been on the physical asset side, on how do we help the local airports do more, but as it relates to the commercial airports that we have and the businesses that are around aviation, like Amazon and others, we do work very closely with the Department of Aviation in the areas in which they have accountability. And as you know, even on the zoning situation relative to any and all airports, they take the lead on that, and we've had several projects this year that we've had to work with them relative to that physical development space. And I think that in and of itself is a strategy, so I will do more to work with them and make sure we formalize our relationship together.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And I'm going to close one, and I shouldn't, but I apologize. I took a tour of I've been to UPS, I've been to DHL, they're great to work with, but I always like to tell this story. When I went to Amazon, not only, I saw and I met people, I just can't remember the storytelling as well as I am on, so I'm not singling out Amazon. But you know, my experience in taking the tour, I met a gentleman who had been a basketball coach and retired early, he said, and then he took this job, and he said he loved it. What was so cool about it is not only did he love the job, loved coming to the airport, but everybody called him the coach because he actively was coaching the young folks coming online to work at Amazon. And I tell that story because, like every industry and every company, when you realize the human element that goes on in these facilities and you find folks like the coach who loves what he's doing and who's taking his talents and multiplying them 10 times over with all the people, that's the ultimate outcome we are all looking for as we work on things like aviation, the automotive industry, and others. You want more stories of the coaches who talk about loving their job, loving the people they work with, and making an impact on what they do every day. And I believe aviation is one of the big drivers of that in our state.
Thank you. I have just a couple questions. If you could go over to your slide, it's titled at the top, Aviation is a Key Driver for Economic Growth.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, you talked about Kentucky and our exports, and I just wanted to ask you, from your perspective, what is right there.
Right. And I've got I think I can get rid of that bookmark, and that's, again, my bad.
That's okay. That first bullet point, it says attract new business to the Commonwealth. What's your biggest sales pitch in order to attract new businesses to the Commonwealth?
Any business or specifically aviation types operation?
Aviation.
Well, first of all, CVG Airport is one of the few airports of its size with the kinds of operations it has that still has land available for future development. That resonates with any kind of commercial aviation enterprise that's there. Then we go to the list of companies that I had on there, like Safran, Raytheon, and others, and say that as it relates to your supply chain, whatever side of the supply chain you're on, we have it here in Kentucky. And whether it's the Madisonville University, what's going on in Northern Kentucky with EKU, We actually have schools that are helping to teach aviation maintenance, people that are getting their pilot's licensing. We have that kind of an infrastructure. And then we kind of go right into, why don't we just talk about what really matters? If we're the number one state for air cargo, and we're the world's largest single investment, if you will, for UPS with its facilities here, the largest North American investment for DHL and Amazon, those speak for itself because they have found real success, real profitability because of the men and women and the physical assets that we have from an aviation perspective. And so at a high level, we would pitch through those things. And if they didn't fall asleep on me where they seemingly were listening to me, we'd go down a little bit deeper and start talking about things that they might be looking for specifically in Kentucky.
And then your third bullet point there, it says provide employment and workforce development opportunities. What do you foresee the biggest challenges here in Kentucky in this industry, aviation economics, in the next 5 to 7 years?
I actually fundamentally believe that there's going to be more and more young people that want to get into the aviation industry, and we have really great programs to do that. I think our work now needs to be to connect those dots a little bit better. I know that DHL, UPS, Amazon all have programs to really get out into the middle schools and the high schools. We need to do more of it in the middle schools because all the data really says that's where you get a young person's interest in exploring the kind of career that they want. So I'm really comfortable, Mr. Chairman, that our training programs and our university are doing a really good job providing the training and the support for the jobs we have of today. I think our biggest opportunity is imagining those jobs of the future and really doing more to help kind of excite and get more young people to figure out how to take advantage of that path. Because we have them, those programs exist, and certainly we have great jobs that exist here in terms of the aviation industry.
In the last section, you talk about marketing the aviation sector, and you point out EKU and Madisonville Community College. All these programs are here in Kentucky, and students from right here or throughout the United States or the world can come right here to Kentucky and thrive in these programs. Is that your understanding?
That is my belief, Mr. Chairman, and I think the numbers prove it out. Can we do more? Yes, we can always do more, but we are so blessed to have the kind of companies that we have doing what they're doing. We just need to always kind of take a few moments to celebrate the companies that we have, talk about them a little bit more, and to the point I made earlier, we need to partner better so that we can tell that story where it really matters to tell that story all around the world.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation and your time.
And next time I come, I promise you I'll have everything loaded the right way in the system to do a better job.
Be great. Thank you.
It's a PDF.
This time we'll invite our next presenters, the Air Traffic Control Study. Excited to hear about this. Dr. Sizemore, I think the last time I saw the two of you was in Owensboro.
That's right.
At the Kentucky Aviation Association meeting, and it's good seeing you all again. If you could just introduce yourselves, and you have the floor.
Hello, I'm Leslie Sizemore. I'm the Vice President for Workforce and Economic Development at Kentucky CPE.
I am Miles Ferroli, and I'm a Senior Associate in the Workforce and Economic Development at CPE.
So you talked about being excited to hear about this. We're very excited to share this today. This is something that's wonderful, a great opportunity for Kentucky. And so we'll try to make the best of your time to share more about this information from this study. So as you know, Senate Bill 87 directed us to do a capacity study. And so today we are going to talk about the researchers that were involved with this, what our opportunities are in Kentucky, how that capacity was actually determined, and then we'll give you the results and talk about next steps. So first of all, back in March, we were directed in coordination with the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet to conduct this study to identify the procedures and resources necessary to establish a program at one or more post-secondary education institutions that leads to that credential as an air traffic controller. So our timeline for that is that we have to support that. We have to submit that report by December 1st to the LRC, and we need to talk to the president and the governing board of any institution that might have been identified as having the capacity. I do want to say that the report is almost completely there. We do have a very high-level draft that's almost complete, but we're waiting on some FAA permissions and that sort of thing to release some appendices. So you will have that report very soon. We will be able to give you the information today from that report, though. And then that by June 30th, we would approve a program from CPE. So we were so very blessed to be able to have a connection with the Kentucky Transportation Center, particularly with Dr. Gail Marks, who was the lead researcher on this project. Dr. Brian Gibson also supported this work. And the study itself was directed to really review these ATCTI institutional requirements and procedures that were necessary for gaining a new program, to investigate the challenges and the barriers to having a program in Kentucky and to getting information from the instructors at current ATCTI institutions and the FAA, and also to identify Kentucky post-secondary institutions with the capacity to establish this enhanced ATCTI program. And then the other thing was to develop that checklist or flow chart that could easily identify the institutions with this particular program capabilities. And so we feel like with this work that we've been able to do all of that. Dr. Marks is actually in the audience with us today, so if there are any very granular details that you would like to have information about, she is here and has the report on her computer. She would be able to address those questions and move on to that. With this, I'll turn it over to Dr. Feroli, who can talk about the study itself and the details of the study.
Thank you so much for having us here today and sharing a bit about the study. And so as you can see here, there is a literal gap in the region for a air traffic collegiate training initiative program that is run in part by and approved by the FAA. There's no standard program or enhanced program. The nearest school is Kent State University. And so Kentucky really has an opportunity to fill both the academic gap by having an FAA credentialed ATCTI school to be able to attract students to the state, but also, you know, as I'm sure you all are hearing, that the FAA is experiencing major workforce shortages, right? There's some reports that say, depending on what site you're at, they're experiencing about a 10 to 15% workforce shortage, right? So having these schools will really, having the school will really be able to fill that gap. And so some of the broad challenges to establishing these ATCTI schools really are about resources. There's a lot of drive, there's a lot of support from the FAA. Institutions see that this is important, and states see this as important as well. But the equipment, training space, and getting the faculty and staff that have the appropriate credentials are three major things that not only are difficult to source in and of themselves, but are also come with financial cost. And so the study was conducted by the Kentucky Transportation Center, which is a neutral third party that did their best and did really great work to ensure that they were exploring each of the public post-secondary institutions in ways that were impartial and also holistic. And so one of the major ways that they collected this data and determined how capacity was defined was through talking with the FAA Air Traffic Collegiate Tower Initiative Program Office. They got a baseline understanding of what the two types of programs that could be offered, both the standard program and the enhanced program. The standard program are housed at FAA-approved community colleges and universities. They provide a 2-year associate's or 4-year bachelor's, specifically that have a non-engineering degree related to aviation or aeronautics. The standard program delivers the FAA Academy Basics for Air Traffic Control course. And then graduates of that 2 or 4-year program then must go to the FAA Academy. And if they pass through that, they're then able to apply and be hired on at an air traffic control center for on-the-job training for another 1 to 3 years, and then eventually can become certified professional controllers. Whereas the enhanced program does all of the bits and bobs that the standard program does, but it includes a curriculum that has specialized courses that focus on managing air traffic control in tower facilities. The graduate of that program is able to bypass the FAA Academy in Oklahoma and is able, and if they pass all their exams and things, right, are then able to directly be placed into an air traffic control facility for on-the-job training. And we do just want to note that because of the national security risk that could be found through some of the information that's developed through the FAA's enhanced program, there was an NDA. So researchers did their best, of which I'll talk about in a minute, to access and sort of backwards map what would be necessary to put forth an enhanced program. And so they weren't able to sign this NDA because UK doesn't have a non-engineering degree connected to aviation or aeronautics. But capacity over feasibility basically just means that the research team had limited access to pertinent FAA documentation. And so capacity is loosely defined as the ability for one or more of Kentucky's post-secondary institutions to accommodate an ATC program. And so capacity further was established through canvassing Kentucky's post-secondary institutions presidents. Several showed interest, saying they wanted to be evaluated, but I do need to note that all post-secondary public institutions were evaluated as well. These were ones that just sort of wanted to speak to researchers. Similarly, some peer institutional materials were reviewed. So there were some publicly available data that the researchers were able to backwards map to understand what sort of degree requirements need to be established, course curricula, things like that. And they also reviewed federal documentation on processes and procedures that were made available to them. The last few ways that they holistically evaluated each of the institutions was by meeting with industry leaders who some of them are FAA-approved simulation equipment vendors. They reviewed equipment options and obtained cost estimates, things like that. They also engaged with the Kentucky post-secondary institutions themselves to see where they were at in their process, gauge interest and things like that. And then last but certainly not least, they took all of this comprehensive work and mapped each of Kentucky's post-secondary institution offerings to the actual ATCTI program eligibility requirements set forth by the FAA. So it wasn't just what is required by the FAA, but a holistic understanding of capacity. So some of the other institutions that they looked at to sort of gauge were Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, Tulsa Community College, SUNY Schenectady County, and these all provide different levels of degree pathways for the ATCTI school. And so with that, out of all of the public post-secondary schools that were evaluated, Eastern Kentucky University is the public post-secondary institution that has the necessary capacity to establish and maintain an enhanced ATCTI program in accordance with Kentucky 25 SB 87. As you can see on the right here, these are all the FAA eligibility requirements. And in some of the documentation that you received as well was a checklist that has been modified and put here on this slide and color-coded. And all of the other institutions are similarly marked in where they're at with their necessary capacity. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Leslie for her to talk about next steps.
So at this point, We will notify EKU by December 1st. Of course, they're in the room. They know that the study identified them as having the necessary capacity. But we will formally notify them that they have been found to have the necessary capacity. We will await their confirmation that they would like to proceed. And if EKU confirms that they'd like to establish the program, we will work with them, as CPE normally does, to approve a program. EKU would then consult with us to determine whether or not their new coursework would be just an add-on to a program, or if it would be a new program. They would set up physical space on their campus for this simulation lab. They would purchase the MER compliant simulation technology and build those testing scenarios, recruit and hire faculty and staff, establish the FAA approved evaluator, complete all those required documents in the Huddle workspace that FAA has, and then hold an on-site evaluation with the FAA. And with that, we would be glad to take any questions that you may have, or if you have a question of Dr. Marks, she's in the audience.
Any members have any questions? Co-Chair Dietz.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I guess my knee-jerk reaction is, I mean, that's wonderful. Do you all have an idea of the cost?
Yes. So some of these simulators cost anywhere between the high 80s upwards of, I believe it's $300,000. So some of the technological equipment, of course, faculty and staff costs. They need to be competitive with what industry rates are and things like that. But of course, in education for the good of the public, right, as well. So folks are aware of that. And then in terms of space build, it's just going to depend on what the sort of necessary space and use of space that EKU is able to sort of figure out. Was there any sort of specific number that I don't think we came up with any specific number in here, but there are estimates for different high cost needs like the technology, the faculty and staff, and then some of the space.
And one follow-up. I'm just curious, and maybe this is a question for EKU at another time, is how long would it take to get us what that proposal would look like on numbers?
So in terms of a standard program, EKU will be able to stand up a standard program once they are able to implement the appropriate coursework that's approved by the FAA, and then working with CPE to ensure that course alignment and things like that are evaluated. And so by that June 30th point is one that is definitely on our mind and on our radar, and we feel feasible to be able to do. The bigger issue has to do with equipment. More often than not, there's a lot of demand on the equipment that isn't just for higher education. Some of these industry partners, they serve everybody. Air traffic control programs, they serve higher ed institutions as well, and private folks. So it can take upwards of a year sometimes to receive some of the equipment, but for the most part, folks are really aware that these programs need to be stood up. Yeah.
And one more follow-up.
Yeah, please.
And I know CVG's in the room, and I've met with them. I'm just curious if we're suggesting, a new materials, new simulator, or if that's something you could partner with an airport, maybe with some of their older equipment when they're replacing.
Sure. That's a great point. These sort of private-public partnerships are something that we're definitely looking into. Yeah, please. Dr. Marks has something to provide.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak.
If you could just identify yourself for the record.
Hi, yes, my name is Dr. Gail Marks. I work at the University of Kentucky at the Kentucky Transportation Center. The FAA has specific requirements for each university that, or post-secondary institution that has a program that they would require that institution to have their own equipment and technology, and that they are not able to necessarily partner with a facility like CVG. They are not allowed to have current FAA employees that would work with the university.
My follow-up would just be, but could it be used equipment? And I say that term, I don't know what else to, but if they're going on to something that's newer and better, is that something that the university could use? I'm just curious. I'm looking at cost, and if you want to get a program off the ground, is that an option?
There are specifications for the technology. I'm not sure. I assume that it could be used, but again, that would be something that that would need to be a discussion with the FAA's air traffic control program.
I also would like to, the Aero Act will hopefully facilitate some private-public partnerships with industry partners to provide basically half of the cost of equipment for institutions that are looking to get new aviation and aerospace equipment.
Representative Rourke.
Thank you. And I just wanted to uplift that this presentation was great. I want to thank the bill sponsors again for bringing this study forward so that it could be done. Because we see nationally that obviously air traffic controllers, we have a shortage. And something that I'm very passionate about is because it is such a difficult job, and we also see the staffing shortages, which makes it even more stressful, that with all those things factored in, even in the best of circumstances, getting folks to do this training, get these credentials, but then also stay in Kentucky is an ongoing challenge that we've seen for many years. And so I think that being able to offer this program in the state of Kentucky allows us to offer our citizens better paying jobs that then they can also stay close to home and support their families, but then also is filling that national need that we know folks that do want to have opportunities elsewhere will be able to kind of go wherever they choose in the country or elsewhere. And so I think that's a really great opportunity. And I think I appreciate Co-Chair Dietz' his comment about cost, because anytime that we're thinking about new programs, it always comes down to, how much is this going to cost and how much is it going to be on an ongoing nature, especially for the Kentucky legislature. But I think overall, being able to kind of fill this gap with Kentuckians is a really critical service that we could be providing.
I think in addition to that, we will draw a lot more people to the state of Kentucky just to attend school. So because there's such a gap in the geographical area for the air traffic control schools, we're going to be pulling a lot of people from nearby states to come here to get that education.
That's an excellent point. I went to EKU and graduated from their criminal justice studies program, and at that time there was all kinds of students from Pennsylvania, Ohio, all these other states, and I was always interested to ask them, why did you end up at EKU? And it's because it was one of the best programs for that in the nation. And so I just want to be clear, though, if you could just go back through, did you all consult or examine every university in Kentucky?
Yes.
And then there's
public. Yes, public schools.
And there was also a slide over here where there was like it says ATCTI eligibility requirements. If you could go to that. There on the right, could you just explain that graphic you have there?
Yep. So this is a graphic that condenses the ATC checklist that Dr. Marks so wonderfully put together. So this graphic goes through specifically for EKU to indicate that they have, checked the box in terms of FAA eligibility requirements. Green means, yes, they have checked the institutional type. So the institutional type specifically, let me pull up my notes here. they're a degree granting, not-for-profit, 2 or 4 institution. They're accredited via SACS COC. It meets the Council for Higher Education accreditation requirements. They offer at least one non-engineering aviation degree. Initiative participation. So that red one there, that basically, to me, the way that I've read it and interpreted it is inviting the FAA to come and evaluate your institution to ensure that it is meeting all of the requirements. So that's red because that hasn't been done yet. Faculty is yellow to green, specifically for EKU, but the faculty note in general is that you must have a 3-year minimum of fully credentialed experience of FAA roles. And so EKU has a mixture of faculty, but they will need additional faculty and staff in order to meet the full FAA requirements. Curriculum is yellow, so they're on their way. They have some curriculum that is developed, but others will need to be developed and implemented, and of course evaluated by CPE to go through the program approval process. And that basically is about covering the learning objectives in FAA basics and other required content that isn't officially known through this study because it's behind that NDA. But once they sign EKU knows about it because they've signed that NDA, which is why that one's green. Red is technology there. They have to meet certain minimum equipment requirements, so some equipment needs to be purchased. And then yellow for testing, because just there needs to be clear methods for how students will master and have mastered learning objectives.
And just so I'm clear, that graphic is based upon the research that
Yes.
you conducted?
Yes.
Okay. And then you all determined that EKU was the institution that has the necessary capacity?
The
correct?
study did, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any follow-ups? All right. Well, thank you for a presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll invite the Air National Guard Aviation Operations to come on up. Army, what did I say? Did I say Navy? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Army. Late in the day. I should have known from your uniforms, and I spoke with you earlier. You want to come on up too? Okay. Well, first and foremost, thank you for your service to the country. We appreciate that. And at this time, if you could just identify yourselves, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, and thank you for our service. You're absolutely worth it. And so are all the citizens of the Commonwealth. So Co-Chair Storm, Co-Chair Dietz, distinguished members, good afternoon. So I'm Brigadier General Brian Wartzler. I'm the Deputy Adjutant General of the Kentucky Army National Guard, and I oversee the 6,400 citizen soldiers within the Kentucky Army National Guard.
Good afternoon. I am Colonel Gabriel Spicer, Commander of 63rd Theater Aviation Brigade, and also the State Aviation Officer.
So Colonel Gabe kind of short-sold himself, so he's the subject matter expert on all things aviation in Kentucky Army National Guard. He's done it for quite a long time. He's going to talk to you today and provide you an overview of the missions, the Army Aviation Force structure that we have within the state, within this Commonwealth, the facilities, and show you how your Army Aviation has supported the Commonwealth, and as well as their training for our federal missions. So.
Appreciate it, sir. Again, thank you for the opportunity to come out and at least share some of our capabilities that we have across our aviation platforms and our formations to help the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Next slide. 63rd TAB, or 63rd Theater Aviation Brigade, has both state and federal mission requirements. In some ways, the missions are interwoven, and also in other ways, they're uniquely different. Our federal mission is very concise: provide command and control to a specified deployed theater for up to 7 aviation battalions. We also have an additional mission for command and control under the chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear response element, where we will provide a 10-person aviation planning cell that can rapidly deploy to an affected area supporting Task Force 46 out of Michigan in case of a major national event. Our state mission is definitely on a broader scale. While still providing command and control, our focus is on National Guard support to civil authorities to ease the pain and suffering of our citizens and also the other states when needed. Our aviation elements are also part of the Counter-Drug Task Force and also the Urban Search and Rescue Task Force put together. Next slide. Here in Kentucky, we have 2 units that have UH-60 Blackhawks assigned to them. They're 2 very unique and different units, but they also operate different variants of the Blackhawk. The first unit, 10 modernized UH-60 Mike or UH-60 Mike model aircraft, belong to Bravo Company, 2nd to the 147th, and have a wide range of missions that they perform. These include air assault, air movement, supply and logistics movement, sling load capabilities, parachute operations, fast roping, and rappelling. Our 3 medevac aircraft belong to Charlie Company, 2nd of the 238th, and are currently deployed to Kosovo. This unit has a very specialized capability of providing search and rescue with rescue hoist and en route medical care for multiple personnel in the aircraft. This unit over the next 12 months will undergo modernization to the newer HH-60 Mike model aircraft, replacing the old legacy UH-60 Lima aircraft that the unit currently has. We currently have 8 UH-72 Lakota aircraft that began fielding in 2013, replacing the Vietnam-era OH-58 aircraft. The primary role of the UH-72 is homeland defense, command and control, and support to law enforcement entities. Our smallest unit is assigned a single King Air 200 C-12 that conducts passenger transport and logistics operations around the world. All of the previously briefed units and our aviation maintenance units all fall under 63rd Theater Aviation Brigade, totaling over 500 personnel. Overall, we are fortunate to have a fleet of modernized aircraft, and over the next year, gain those additional modernized aircraft with the medevac. But all in all, they directly drive our high levels of readiness and our ability to respond when needed. Next slide. This collage was put together to give you an idea of the wide range and variety of missions that our organization completes on a routine basis, either through training or real-life events. The top center and the top left were taken during the Eastern Kentucky floods in 2022. I was personally the 2nd aircraft that was on scene that day and absolutely humbled by the devastation as I descended out of the clouds on that instrument approach to the area. Our team swiftly moved in, saving lives of the vast amount of citizens that needed to be rescued from flooded houses, trees, and also rushing water. As many of you know, this effort went on for weeks from our end, but we were there immediately within hours and also supported by the other surrounding states of Tennessee and West Virginia with aircraft. Another mission said that we conduct our Bambi Bucket operations that you can see at the 6 o'clock position there. The Bambi Bucket holds approximately 660 gallons of water and is used to assist with large fires, range fires, or forest fires like we supported in 2016. At the 3 o'clock position, you'll see a machine gun mounted to a Blackhawk as a defensive weapon. Aerial gunnery is a requirement for aircrew members that must complete this requirement to remain proficient for the deployed mission sets as they arise. All these missions are planned for, coordinated, and managed in our operations cell, both at the battalion and the brigade levels, as seen here in the middle. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, we have a mostly modernized fleet of aircraft, but again, we are very fortunate to have a new Army Aviation Support Facility that opened in 2015, comprised of over 180,000 square feet with a cost of $37 million. This facility brings all Army aircraft under one single roof, reducing the overall maintenance cost and saving man-hours and increasing readiness. All of our training for the pilots and crew members are also completed out of this facility, and it's also connected to Capital City Airport. Next slide. Monthly, Army Aviation has over 500 personnel that come to Frankfurt to complete their drill. In addition to drill, the pilots and crew members come to Frankfurt to complete their flying hour requirements a few times a month. With over 500 soldiers, training never stops, as personnel are constantly attending professional development, technical-based schools, and monthly drill totaling over $7.7 million a year. There are over 120 full-time employees here in Frankfurt that support Army Aviation directly. The majority of these personnel are located at the Army Aviation Flight Facility, and they consist of federal technicians that maintain Army aircraft, contractors that maintain the heavy maintenance requirements, and the active duty personnel that maintain the readiness of the units. AMPs are not required for all of these aircraft, and it was mentioned the AMT programs from some of the other previously presenters, and this is a very key capability that we have. But it is required by the FAA on the UH-72 Lakota. Our force have had the opportunity to qualify and license over 45 AMP mechanics, creating skills that directly correlate to that civilian market. We have a large portion of our force that are employed as pilots and mechanics in the civilian market. This includes pilots with UPS, Delta, American, United, PHI, Air Methods, Lockheed Martin, and Boeing, just to name a few. Since the ASF is the primary training facility for our aviation force, there is just over $1 million in personnel dollars that goes directly to traditional guardsmen and the associated fuel budget that you see here that's spread from airports from Ashland to Paducah, all in support of our aviation operations. The counter-drug aviation budget that is referenced here goes to full-time and part-time personnel that conduct operations in concert with law enforcement entities across the Commonwealth. In total, there's just a little over $12 million that directly support Army aviation here in Kentucky in the form of training, preparing for deployment, and law enforcement support. Next slide. All in all, we have a wide variety of aviation mission capabilities here within the state, and we stand, as always, ready to support the citizens of our Commonwealth here and abroad. This time, I'll open it up for questions.
Any questions? I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What is the biggest challenge, or what's the biggest thing that we, as a General Assembly, can help you all as it relates to retention and hiring and getting folks prepared to come work with you all?
Go ahead, sir.
You provide us a lot of benefits. So talk about us. We appreciate it. Everything done. You help us with educational benefits. You're helping us with a KEEP program, which is Kentucky Enhanced Enlistment Program, which is incentivizing our soldiers and airmen to talk to their friends, talk to their buddies about the great experiences they're having within the military, all the opportunities they're presenting. Continue to support us. We appreciate that. At this time, no additional ask, but thanks so much. So thank you again for inviting us to present to you this afternoon and highlighting the amazing accomplishments in the aviation capabilities within the Kentucky Army National Guard. We appreciate your continued support and are proud to serve you, the citizens of the Commonwealth, and this nation. This will defend. We fight as Kentuckians. Thank you.
Senator Elkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, gentlemen, for your service. I very much appreciate that. So a lot of times soldiers don't like to talk about what they need when they ask. So let me ask that a little differently. What is your biggest challenge? What's the toughest thing that you guys face on a day-to-day to complete your mission?
So people. We can't do anything without people, and we recognize that as an organization. So there was a time, we are much better now, but we're recruiting and retention. So we looked at several different things, two separate issues there. Again, the KEEP program that I just talked about briefly, talking about incentivizing our soldiers and airmen within the organization to bring in to talk about the organization is only about 2 years old. But it is already, we've recruited over 500 or so in the Army through soldiers bringing in friends and others through that program. So retention is key, to have people so we can provide assistance, whether state or federal, and then retention. So we also, to get at retention, have, there's many benefits. We talked about some of the state benefits. There's many federal benefits also to our soldiers. So we captured all of those benefits, and it's actually 96 pages of information. We captured it, we put it on our app. We provided that, sent that to every soldier. So twofold opportunity here to keep people in uniform, to provide our soldiers the opportunity, but it's the recruiting piece, the retention piece, and I'm glad to report we're being successful with both.
I kind of figured that maybe the answer was people, but I do want to take just a minute to thank you again for what you do. You make Kentucky proud. Thank you.
Thank you. We're glad to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no further questions, this does conclude your presentation. We do thank you so much for your service to the Commonwealth and the nation. Thank you. Representative Works, do you want to address the committee?
Yes, Chairman.
Okay.
So, colleagues, I had the opportunity to attend the National Lieutenant Governors Association's first ever subcommittee that they put together, and it was around airspace and aviation and air mobility. So we talked about everything from spaceports to defense, as well as advanced manufacturing for our aerospace industries. And we had a lot of good presenters that came in, folks with Lockheed Martin. We had Strider, who talked about defense, artificial intelligence, and data usage, and also gave some really good information about protecting our public and private universities from threats around foreign actors trying to take some of our research and development and how they kind of go about doing that. So there was lots of really great information, but we also had the opportunity to kind of advance and elevate Kentuckian on a national playing field. There were 3 lieutenant governors that were able to attend the conference. I was one of 3 elected legislators who were there. We also had Tennessee and Oregon who were there, and over 20 states were represented as a whole. We got to tour Hill Air Force Base and learn about their needs, especially around, again, having civilian AMTs there to keep up the older aircrafts and then do the repairs on those, but also the need to make sure that we're investing in more modern equipment overall too. So I think other key takeaways around Utah, with it being such a leader in the aerospace industry, they have a very pro-military public policies. They talk about how their legislature is very supportive of both the aerospace industry, but then also military families as a whole. And they talked a little bit about some of the things that we've been looking at in terms of protecting land around our airports from, again, foreign entities who might pose a threat to the United States. I know that there's been a lot of talk nationally about making sure that states are keeping an eye on that. But one thing that Strider actually mentioned too is that we as legislators really don't get a whole lot of training around national security and defense needs. And so that was a very good way to put a lot of these state stakeholders together to say, like, this is a priority that we all share, and they're looking to maybe even provide more of that education to state legislatures. Trying to think of what any other final closing thoughts to add. Like Secretary Knoll mentioned earlier, what became really apparent to me from this conference is that the land around our general aviation airports, as well as our bigger commercial airports, we have a lot of opportunities to capitalize on those interdependencies, again, protect the space, but also with our really great manufacturing workforce to be looking to how we can provide those complementary industries in the spaces that we already have. And the folks with spaceports would be remiss if I didn't mention that you don't have to be doing launches to become a spaceport. And there are a lot of good complementary industries that would correlate with Kentucky's manufacturing and our students here. So I think that is about all I wanted to share, but I just wanted to say it was a really great opportunity to, again, go represent Kentucky, with air cargo, again, being our #1 export, and having such great aviation partners. It was really good to just kind of participate in a group of state leaders who are looking to really influence what federal FAA decisions might be coming. Obviously, we always do have to react to what the FAA does, but being proactive about what our companies here would like to see in terms of as technology advances to make sure that we get those policies right, and as states that we protect our interest as technology continues to advance. And I guess what I learned too was that a lot of these things that sound like they're very futuristic and something that's going to happen down the road are happening right now, and we have to address those shifting public policy needs that are going to come from these new types of transportation. So I was really glad to hear that we talked about a lot of that at our last meeting as well. So thank you for letting me share, and I'm hopeful to those conversations continuing across states.
Well, thank you for that presentation and that update. Members of the task force, this is our last meeting. I want to thank everyone for participating here, being so involved. I want to thank Co-Chair Dietz for her work on the task force. And as you'll see, number 7 is on the agenda is discussion of task force report. So if there's any recommendations that any of you all have today that you would like to share, you're welcome to. If you would rather share those in email, I would ask you to copy both myself and Co-Chair Dietz on any recommendations you may have. If there are any individuals out here or stakeholders that are participated, if you have any ideas or recommendations, not going to promise you we're going to adhere to all those because there's probably going to be numerous, but we do want to make sure that we're moving the Commonwealth forward. We do have a $20 billion export industry here in Kentucky in aerospace and aviation. As you pointed out, we've had issues with national security throughout the country, so we're just trying to make sure we're putting together good recommendations, a good report for the General Assembly to consider. And Co-Chair Dietz, do you have any follow-up comments you'd like to offer as our last meeting of the task force? No, okay, well, thank you. And I always learned as a lawyer, if they say no more questions, you end at that point. So thank you all for your participation and your service on the task force.